pretty much master of it, right here, or studying to be one.
Well, I mean, no one is a master of anything, really. But yeah, trying my best to pass on whatever I learned in the best way I can.
You're pretty good.
Yeah, I try. So let's all try together. Class is always a review. Every class is always open for discussion. So the first and foremost thing in all of Indian music is, number one, that it began as a spiritual practice, as a sadhana for attainment of moksha. This is not only something, philosophical that one could say in that philosophical way, yes, this is what our tradition is. I'll tell you, from learning and being with musicians, it's not like they're going to quote some shastras, like the stuff that I do, like go and read some Sanskrit. They don't know. They're not going to do that. They lived a life that you saw when someone did their riyaz, their practice. You could see that it was a sadhana. I mean, I'm like getting shivers just thinking about times, many times when, to see a master musician just doing their practice, something else. Vilayat Khan Sahib, for example. If you want to read a good book, by the way, about music, read Vilayat Khan Sahib's biography that was recently published. Very nice book. Very well written. Got the spirit of the artist. One time one of his students said, Khan Sahib, can I come and just listen while you do your riyaz? And Khan Sahib said, I'm sorry. See, if you came and sat there, it wouldn't be my riyaz anymore. It would not be my sadhana anymore. It would be a performance because, you'd be there, I'd be thinking about something. That was something done solitary, hours and hours of practice. That's sadhana. That's what it is. So that sadhana comes from, in a musical sense, from this sa. So let us have 2 minutes of silence on sa. Okay, thank you. So, picking up from last time, well, this time I have the sitar, which is my instrument. But singing, of course, is still the base of all raga music. All raga music comes from voice. Voice is pradhanya, has its most importance is given to that. Okay, so any questions from last time for you guys? Any questions in general about Indian music before we start that anyone is curious about? I'm happy to answer that also. Okay, all right. So the tamper is going on. This is playing sa, the bass note. Now, what are the 7 notes of Indian music? Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, and ni. And then sa repeats again. Now, again, reviewing from last time, this basic scale is exactly akin to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do in Western music. And in fact, in the Hindustani system, which is a little bit different than the Carnatic system, which is South Indian system, we're basically talking about North Indian system with most things that I discuss. Although I'm happy to discuss whatever little I know about Carnatic music, I can try. But mostly I only know Hindustani music. In Hindustani music, the base scale, what we call the Shuddha scale, or the natural scale, is exactly equivalent to the major scale in Western music. So in a very fundamental way, Eastern music and Western music share a fundamental similarity in how they break up like what we call the octave. So I'll demonstrate on sitar what that means. Like if you hear, sounds very easy. You can play all of Western music on that. Very simple, very standard. That's about where it ends in terms of that kind of similarity. I mean, that's a big thing. Having the basic notes the same is quite a good similarity. But Indian music will never play. I mean, it will play. Indian music will prefer. Right? Yeah. You feel that this is something different there. That there's a beauty there. Right? And of course, it's different than, and all sorts of variations that can happen just from this one fret between these 3 notes. So many combinations you can go on. And more importantly, though, is what's in between those notes. So is important and special. Is different than playing. Says something different. It's a flavor. It's a style. That's Indian music. That's raga. That in-betweenness, that feeling, that emotion, all of that stuff. That's what rag means. As we discussed last time, it's color, it's emotion, really it's experience. Notes, fine, very, very important. All musicians, we know that, we'll discuss that. We'll talk about notes today. In fact, that's the main part of today's class. Is a little bit hard on the music theory side of things. But that feeling of rag and the movement of these notes in between notes, all of that, what we call alankara, or ornamentation, that's the heart of raga music. Now, the skeleton of raga music are these things like sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa. Sa is the bass frequency. Then some important terms. 2 very important terms and things that really fundamental principle of like rag classification is basically what we're going to talk about. Rag theory, you could say. And that is arohi and avarohi. You want to write these down? It's Arohi. A is the prefix. Roha. Rohanam is, a progression. So arohanam, arohi, arohana, like that. All those words mean ascending, going up. Means that each raga has a specific way that it likes to ascend the scale, to move up the scale. The movement of the notes as they move up is a certain way. That is called the Arohi. Or in Carnatic music, Arohanam. The inverse, Ava, that's the prefix in Sanskrit, means down. So now descending. Literally, we're talking about ascending and descending. Arohi, Avarohi. Or Avarohanam. Avarohi means the descending. The raga has a way that it likes to descend the scale. Okay, these are two very important terms. Arohi, Avarohi. Ascending and descending. Now, here's where it gets fun, and here's where the love of numbers and stuff start to get, like the Indian permutations, combinations. Music is very mathematical. And I say mathematical not in that dry sense, It's a beautiful sense. It's like a poetry of mathematics. You have to think of it like that. So, again, classification, that's what we're doing, ragas. There's different ways that you can go up and down scales. You can do this in three different ways. You can be 5 notes, 6 notes, or 7 notes. Ragas generally don't deal with anything less than 5 notes. So 5 notes is an absolute minimum. You can't do much with 4 notes. I think once Alekra Kansab came up with one rag that had 4 notes. Then Ilaiyaraaja, the South Indian composer, brilliant. You want to know like a Mozart of modern times? Ilaiyaraaja, arey baba. He wrote a song just with these 3 notes I was playing before. He has a whole song just with 3 notes. No, that's fine. That's all fun and good. But in your typical standard raga sense, you need 5 notes to make a rag. And this is a very interesting number because this is basically what we call in Western music pentatonic scale. Penta, 5, pancha, same penta, pancha, same root, by the way. So pentatonic scales are like very common all around the world. And we're going to discuss some pentatonic scales today. That 5 note scale. So 5 is kind of a minimum. But you can also use 6 and you can also use 7. 7 would be all of the notes, right? So what they call these classifications in the system is Audava, that is 5. Sharaj, that's 6, and then Sampurna. Sampurna means all or full, but that's a 7. So 5, 6, and 7. So if I ask a math question now, how many permutations of Arohi, Avarohi combinations of rag types could I make? How many types, classifications of these Arohi, Avarohi? Yeah, you got the question. Can you make? You can have a 5-5 rag, means it goes up 5 and it comes down 5, right? You can have a 5-6 rag, it goes up 5 and comes. So how many is that? Quick, 9. 9 is the correct answer. Now, what's interesting though is, as you'll find, that's like a conceptual number. What really happens? It's quite uncommon, and I mean, I'd be happy if people found other exceptions, but generally, I can't even think of any off the top of my head. There aren't too many rags that like ascend with a large number and descend with a less number. You know what I mean? Like you won't have a rag that goes up 7 and comes down 5 or something. The inverse of that, however, is very common. For example, rags that go up using 5 notes and descend using 7 notes. Audava Sampurna. So 5-7 rags. 5-7 rags are very common actually. And we're going to do a 5-7 rag today. So is this clear, this basic idea? Yes, sir.
Is it common to go up, ascend 5, and come down 5?
Yes. 5-5 is also very common, and that's what gives us what we say in Western music is a pentatonic scale. Just 5 notes. 6-6 is somewhat common, somewhat there. 5-5 is very there. 5-7 is possible. And then there's a bunch of rags that kind of defy that kind of even easy patterning. So again, all these classification systems too, these are just theories. No real musician sits around talking about this stuff. It's too dry. I mean, musicians play music. They play rags. That's it. I mean, it's the musicologists that go around, or the Sangeeta Shastrakaras, the guys that write the music text. Those guys sit around and then they're doing their permutations, like I'm saying, in math. And actually, some very interesting math developed out of music texts. Very interesting. Like, for example, or even out of poetry and language and literature. Like, for example, Fibonacci sequence was a well-known sequence in India well before Fibonacci. Hemachandra, the Jain, actually in Patan, in Gujarat, came up with Fibonacci based on how like certain meters in Indian poetry work. Now these same meters, what we call chandas also relates to tal, which again another subject which we're not going to get too much into because this is raga class, not tala class. But raga and tal, like we discussed, it's like Shiva Parvati. You have to be, they're always together. You can't have rag without tal. It just doesn't exist. Okay, so this is clear 5, 6, 7s rag classification with ascending and descending pattern. Okay, one other thing. And this is like, again, rag classification, there's all different types of classification systems. One of the old systems, for example, is called the raga ragini system. So there are like 6 like original rags, like Bhairavi. And then there'd be like raginis, like the female counterparts like Bhairavi. And like these 6, or 12 altogether would have like little raga putras and putrinis and little daughters and sons. And this is how rag, and actually, although it sounds a little funny to us, in a way, this is a much more intuitive system for how rags really work in terms of like familial relationships. Sometimes brothers and sisters can be so different. You know what I mean? Even though they have the same parentage, they're very different. But then you have like best friends who have no like parentage the same, but they're so similar. Like that, rags are also like that. The complexities of like human life, that's what rags are like. Rags are like people. They have the individual thing. Yes, they're related. They have cultures. They belong to families, like we're going to discuss today. But they're individuals too. So they behave sometimes not like their family does or something. You know what I mean? So rags are unique. Basically, the bottom line with rags is you have to know them by listening and being with them. Classification is just different types of ways that people look at them and organize them. So raga, ragini system is one system. Okay. Then you have Carnatic system. They have Melakarta system. 72 parent scales. They have a whole system we can discuss. I love discussing that system. That's very theoretical. One system that became very popular in Hindustani music, and that was basically heavily promoted and codified, really in the 20th century, so like about 100 years ago, you could say, by particularly one person in the north, Bhatkande. Bhatkande wrote a lot. He went around, collected compositions from musicians, wrote down compositions, read old texts, wrote books himself. Really a great musicologist. He came up with the system of the 10 thats. And these are 10 scales that the Hindustani music system generally recognizes. We're going to look at one of these, or we'll look at a bunch of ragas throughout the series here, but the rag that we worked on last time, Yaman, is from a particular tat. And we're going to look at another rag from that tat. And we're going to look at how another classification system, when I was talking about more of this rag ang and ragini system, we're going to look at a set of rags, all called Kalyan. That is the thing that we're looking at. So Kalyan is the tat name. It's also the name of what we call a rag ang. Rag ang matlab means, there's a whole set family of rags, Kalyan rags. So they all exhibit certain features and similarities, but they're all very unique too. So we'll look at some of that, and I'll give you one particular Kalyan rag to contrast Yaman with, and then we can discuss other ones. But the main, yeah. No. That was it. Go ahead, please. Perfect.
Can you give me an example of ragini in terms of how is it different? If it's a thing, just like an example.
Yeah. Well, so that there won't be anything musical that we could particularly say. And here's the crazy thing: at the period when those classifications were made, those are not actually we're pretty sure, not like how we play those rags today. So rag Bhairav from then is not like Bhairav today. You know what I mean? So I would say there's nothing that we could say that's different of a rag or ragini actually at all, musically, emotionally, or in any other way. If anything, you might say that like the rags are kind of more on like the serious vir ras end of things, and the Ragini rags would be more like emotional Shringar Ras type thing. But even that, again, is like a little too normative for even what I would want to say. What's interesting about that, if you want to get into it, is you look at Ragmala paintings, like the one we used for the poster for this series. You know, those all developed later. They would have a rag name, and they would show maybe like very typical, like for example, Todi. Todi is a morning rag, very heavy rag actually, you know, very serious. But it's depicted with, you know, this very beautiful woman out in nature under a tree with a deer nearby, and she's holding a tanpura. You know, emotionally, that's like so far away from how I think of Todi. I don't know. So what their Todi that they are playing could be something else. For example, Todi in Carnatic music is more like Bhairavi. So then we think, okay, maybe that Todi they're talking about is more like Bhairavi. So then what am I supposed to understand about what Bhairavi is? So it's all very complicated. So I wouldn't attach any valency of rag to rag or ragini in any separate way.
And,
Yeah, next question.
what's the scale?
What's a scale? Yeah, it's a general rule, you mean? So a scale, generally when we say a scale, it's like you have an octave, right? Sa to sa, high sa. Like that is an octave. All music basically kind of understands that. I mean, it's a fundamental principle. As in, if this is vibrating at, let's say, 100 hertz, your octave is 200 hertz. So in the middle of that, right? You can divide up the scale in any number of ways you want, right? But the typical way that we're used to, both in India and in the West, is dividing it up into these 7 notes. Now, what's interesting is these 7 notes don't actually mean there's only like 7 places there, because there's not just 7 places. How many actual spaces are there in this octave? In this scale set in this bracket, it's actually 12. And this is very, very important to understand. Very important. So what I'm saying right now is that the octave, right, this scale zone that we're talking about, I'm glad you asked the question, thank you, is divided into what they call in Western music the 12-tone diatonic scale. So that means like when you sit on a piano, those are like the white and black keys going from C to C, okay? And the white notes are your major scale, and you're gonna get 7 of those. You're also gonna get those 5 black notes. It's those 5 black notes added up with the 7 that give you those 12. Okay? And now, using different combinations of white and black keys, you can come up with all sorts of different kinds of scales. In Western music, honestly, like especially classical music, fundamentally is only using 2 scales. A major scale or a minor scale. Indian music uses all sorts of interesting scales, and we will get to those very interesting scales later. This scale set is actually not too crazy, although it's a little bit different because it's not a major scale. The Kalyan Tat, which we'll get to in a second, is not like that, and we'll discuss that. And we can talk about the relationship of these, you know, different notes. Actually, maybe we can do that. So, sa and sa, you understand that? That's the scale. They start with sa and then it goes up to high sa. One of these notes is a very fixed note, which is actually like vibrating in this tanpura also. This tanpura is singing not only sa, but one other note. There's one other note in the scale that's like totally stable and fixed. You know what note that is? Yeah. Pa. Pa. Ma is second close. Second close, exactly. Second close. Ma is also a very important note. So pa. Pa is pancham, penta, the 5th note, right? So this, it's just like so in tune, you know. Almost seems like I'm singing sa. And this has to do with nature and the overtone series. For example, when you hit a string, right? That string is vibrating at this length. It's vibrating at half that length, a third that length, a quarter of that length, all of those lengths. That's why a sound, like a struck sound, is not just one frequency. You're hearing a bunch of different frequencies. It's just those other frequencies are much lower, and you're just hearing the main one a lot. That's called the fundamental. These other things are called overtones. And so if you look at the overtone series, and again, this is a function of physics. This is not even like music. This is just straight up physics. look at the overtone series. First, it's vibrating at double, so you're always going to hear this octave inside a tone. Later on, you're going to hear this pancham. So the reason why the fifth is a very consonant note is because it's actually embedded in within sa. Pa is part of sa. That's the point. So this pa is kind of a fixed thing. Ma, as you interestingly pointed out, is also a very fixed note. And what if you look at it, ma is basically pancham going down. If you go pancham down from sa instead of pancham up from sa, you get to ma actually. So ma, and then this is the same thing that Western music discovered. In Western music, they call pa the dominant, and then they call ma subdominant. And you'll find actually later, and we'll discuss this too, even though this tampra is now droning sa pa, what we call, this is standard kind of stuff. There's a whole set of ragas, well-known ragas, Bhagashri, Ragashri, all these ragas, Malkund, all those ragas, that drone not sa pa, but sa ma. So there's a whole class of ragas that drone sa ma. We will discuss that later on a different occasion. So, sa, fixed note, pa, fixed note. Ma is variable, we'll talk about that in a second, it's actually an important note. The remaining notes, what are they? Re, ga, da, and ni. Right? These four notes, this is what's important to remember. These four notes have a shuddha form, that's the natural form, and then they have a flat form. Right? So if I played, like for example, sa, re, ga, with all shuddha notes, it would sound like sa, re, ga. Right? Now if I played komo ga, that's the minor third in Western music, it would be sa, re, ga. Right? Now if I made re komo also, it would be. So there's bunches of combinations in there. A lot of those scales we don't use in Western music. I mean, we rarely use in Western music. It just doesn't come up very much. The note we're going to use now, the Tivra Ma, I'm going to explain in a second, that music was called music diablo in Western music for a long time. The devil in music. The devil, yeah. So, because, you know, it sounds very dissonant, but if you put it in context with other things, it sounds very beautiful. Right? That's what Indian music is all about. It's context. Something is not inherently the way it is. Everything arises into its being through its context with everything else. That's what the whole idea of relative pitch we discussed last time is all about. Sa is just sa. It doesn't have to be C or D or F or G. Sa is sa. Your sa is your sa. My sa is my sa. No problem. Okay. So, re, ga, da, and ni. These four can be either shuddha or komo. Ma, this very interesting note, can either be shuddha or tivra, means sharp or acute. That's what that note is that we're going to talk about today. So, any questions right now? Yes. That's right. Exactly. And then pa and sa are fixed. There's only one variety of those. Yeah. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, and then sa again. Good. You're good. Yeah, good. So it's just like don't re. So if you put it in your mind, so my guru always used to say, just do it now in my presence. Ma, da. You got it. And then down, sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. Sa, ni, da, pa, yeah, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. Yeah, we'll sing some scales now and do that. Okay, any questions up till now? Okay, so here we go. This is the Kalyan ta. Now a ta just means the basic scale. That means what is the basic note, 7 notes that I'm going to draw on to create a rag. Okay? So there's a bunch of rags that are in Kalyan ta, like Yaman that we did last time, and like the rag I'm going to show you today, which is called Shuddha Kalyan. So let me show you at the basic scale. Let's try to all sing the basic Kalyan pop. So I'll show you. That's going to be Saregama Padani. So we'll sing all the notes, like Sampurna, Sampurna, you could say. Okay? So the interesting thing in Kalyan Tat is that it is not the Shuddha scale. That means it's not the major scale. What's different about this scale? It has Tivrama. That sharp 4, what we call Kalyan, is called Lydian, for example. It's called the Lydian mode in Western music. So here we go. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma da de sa. Okay, so we try to do it together. You can hum too. You don't have to say sa if you're worried about that part. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma de ni sa. Very good again. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma de sa. You guys are excellent. Okay, so that's like basic. You can do this basic practice at home. Really, I mean, talk about meditation. If you just took this basic scale and sang with your heart of hearts, I mean, the best kind of meditation you can do. Nada yoga, I'm telling you. Really. And the yogis say that. You know, number one thing. But with Om, you just say Om, finished. Best thing you can do in life. I really mean it. I mean, I'm not like trying to promote anything. I just like what I feel. Yeah, I mean, it's number one. Okay, so last time we did Yaman Kalyan. That's kind of, I mean, again, classification is such a weird thing. I think they classify that as, Sampurna, Sampurna, as in it uses all the notes going up. I mean, Yaman we discussed, remember, skip Sa on the way up, so. That's Yaman. We can discuss Yaman more some other time. Let me show you a different rag. This rag is called Shuddha Kalyan. Pure Kalyan, actually, is the name of this rag. Shuddha Kalyan. So the beautiful thing about Shuddha Kalyan is it is of the form Audava Sampurna. That means it's a 5/7 rag. Means it's going to use 5 notes in the ascending and 7 notes in the descending. It is from the Kalyan Pat. That means it's going to use only notes from the scale that we just played. So, what happens? There are certain notes that are going to be omitted, right, in the ascent. So, in this rag, ma and ni are omitted. So that means the ascent of this rag is sa re ga pa da sa, like this. Sa re ga pa da sa. This rag or this scale is very popular all around the world. If I played this as a 5/5 rag, for example, if I played sa re ga pa da sa, sa da pa da re sa, like just those notes, 5 notes, that's one rag. That's actually a known rag. It's called Bhupali. Very popular in South Indian music called Mohana, right? You could play a whole beautiful thing, hours and hours, just Bhupali, like that. That's Bhupali. That would be an Audava rag, right? Just that one. There is another rag that uses this scale set, actually, but this is a discussion for another day. That's a morning rag, and it's classified in a different pot. But again, that's hardcore rag stuff. That's like advanced rag, like level 3. Yeah.
It's a sunrise.
It is Desh card. It's called Desh. It's the day maker. It's called the day maker. It's a rag for the sun. Yeah. So what was I saying? So Bhupali, that's the 5/5 rag. This rag is Shuddha Kalyan, 5/7. So this is how this rag goes. Quite beautiful. So it's basically 5 notes going up and then all 7 notes of the Kalyan Ghat going down. So let's all try to sing Bhupali, just the Arohi, Avarohi from Sa to Sa. Right? So it's going to be Sa, Re, Ga, Pa, Da, Sa, Sa, Ni, Ga, Pa. Sorry, I sang the wrong beat. Ga, Ga, Re, Sa. So let's try to do it together. 1, 2, ready, go. Sa, Re, Ga, Pa, Da, Sa, Sa, Ni, Da, Pa, Ma, Da, Re, Sa. Excellent. Again. Sa, Re, Ga, Pa, Da, Sa, Sa, Ni, Da, Pa, Ma, Da, Re, Sa. A little faster. Sa, Re, Ga, Pa, Da, Sa, Sa, Ni, Da, Pa, Ma, Da, Re, Sa. Hey, you guys are really good. So now that's just, again, the skeleton of the rag. How does the rag really work? Well, you have to, get into the mood of the rag. So let's, in the last 5 minutes, sing some rag phrases, what we call the chalan of the rag. And this we'll get into, again, next time. Chalan is the big thing. So after all the skeletal information that we talked about today, the notes, the arohi, the avarohi, what does the rag actually do? What does it actually behave like? That is the chalan, from chalna, to move about, to go. Right? How does the rag behave? That's what we want to know. So this rag, for example, you don't want to play too much ni or too much ma. These notes have to be used in glissando in the avarohi. So you don't want to play something like that. Doesn't sound good in this rag because too much ni you play. You want to play. So just going over ni. Same thing with ma. Is nice. That's it. I'm not playing. I could play that in Yaman. That phrase would be okay. But in this rag, no. This rag you want to play. That's the flavor of this rag. This rag you want to stick more with that, phraseology of those 5 notes. Those big sa re ga pa da sa. So let's try this phrase. Sa ni da pa. Let's all do together. Sa. Yeah. Da pa sa. Da. Yeah. Da pa sa. Now this pasa. See, this pasa is important because this is something we call part of the Kalyan Ang. So you'll see pasa happening in other Kalyan rag. Maybe to a lesser or greater extent, but you'll see it happening. In this rag, it's pretty big. So the pasa is a big phrase. So we have now. If you played that, people are like, oh yeah, the Shuddha Kalyan could be happening now. And then you're going to play. Try that. And then. Yeah, very good. Let's just try that one. That's a good phrase. So it's sa ni da ga re sa da. Yeah, good. That was good. Again. That was nice. Again. Straight. Sa-re-ga-ga. Sa-re-ga-pa-pa. Excellent. Sa-re-ga-da-pa. Hit the da. Sa-re-ga-da-pa-ma-ga. Yeah, you guys are so good, man. So that's a flavor of the Shuddha Kalyam. I'll send a recording. You can listen to that. So thank you. I hope you enjoy that. We can, while we clean up, we can have questions and answers. But thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Bristol, again. All right. Happy listening. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Live stream if anybody's watching. Are you sure you want to end your stream? End it.